Hitting it big in search isn't luck. There's a methodical process behind writing optimized content, and it starts with empathy. Today, I'm joined by Tom Gerencer, the author of Think Like Google, and he knows that the days of trying to game search algorithms is long behind us. Google is looking to surface the most authentic results, and to do so, they'd study behavioral cues, such as click-throughs and whether or not someone returns back to their search once they've gotten started. I enjoyed this episode because his philosophy and ours at True Marketing are very similar, that you need to focus first on knowing your target audience, what their pain points are, what they're searching on, and then write about something that you're an expert at, that you can add value to in the world, and that's unique compared to other things that are surfaced in search. This episode provides a lot of practical advice, particularly for those of you working on either a content strategy or writing content, and you want to make sure that content is optimized for search. It is jam-packed with advice, so get your pen or your keyboard ready, and let's get started.
Welcome to Content Marketing Engineered, your source for building trust and generating demand with technical content. Here is your host, Wendy Covey.
Hi, and welcome to Content Marketing Engineered. I'm your host, Wendy Covey. On each episode, I'll break down an industry trend, best practice, or challenge in marketing to technical audiences. Along the way, you'll meet friends and colleagues of mine who will share their stories. And my hope is that with each episode, you'll be inspired and ready to take action. Before we get started, I'd like to give a brief shout out to our sponsor, True Marketing. True is a full-service content marketing agency located in beautiful Austin, Texas. For more information, visit truemarketing.com. Hi, and welcome to today's show. With me, I have Tom Gerencer, who's the CEO and writer for his own company, Gerencer Creative. And he's also author of a book called Think Like Google that helps companies use empathy to improve search performance. And I'm really excited to dig into that idea. So welcome to the show, Tom.
Thank you so much for having me, Wendy. It's great to be here.
You bet. Well, let's start with just hearing a little bit about you. How did you get your start in content marketing and become a writer and an expert at all things SEO?
Yeah, well, I had a video production business. My wife and I used to live up in Maine. That's where we were both born and raised. And then wanted to move to a place where once we started having kids, we could be able to get out still and do outdoor things without long drive times. So we ended up moving to West Virginia, and I had a successful video production business up in Maine for 8 to 10 years, and it was great income. But when we moved down here, suddenly that didn't work anymore because we're in the middle of the woods. You know, there's great rock climbing and whitewater here, but what there is not here is great clients, like a huge pool of clients.
I see.
So after a few years of trying to make different things work, I said, well, you know, I'm a good writer. I've been a good writer since I was young, so I'll try that. So I started doing that and, you know, tried some forays here and there, wasn't making much money off it. And then, as usually happens with people, when they are about to have a child, which we were, you suddenly get a lot more motivation. So we were about 2 weeks from having our first child, and I had no job, and I had burned through most of my savings that I created with this video production business. And I was thinking, well, I got to do something now, or I'm going to have to go to work for Lowe's, or, you know, for $12 an hour or something. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I ended up, you know, talking to a friend of mine who was a novelist, and he said, you know, I said, what do you do? Did you ever do any corporate work? He said, yeah, actually, I just stopped doing corporate work for the first time in my life. I'm able to make a full-time living off being a novelist. I'm so excited. I said, wait, stop right there. You just stopped doing corporate work. Are any of your clients looking to replace you? And he said, yeah, actually, there's this client of mine who's looking for somebody right now. So
perfect.
Talk about a godsend. So I called the guy and he said, yeah, I want to hire you. And unfortunately, though, it was for about $40,000 a year for writing about 11,500 words per week of finished copy with images. So it was
I love that you remember the numbers to just know the ridiculousness of the situation.
That was what I did for 2 years. So I fully
Wow.
remember that it was 11,500 words every week for 2 years. And he gave me a raise after the first year. I got a lot of traffic. I didn't know thing one about SEO at first, but I learned it quickly. I mean, he started out, the site had 0 traffic. It was a brand new site. And he said, you got to get traffic. That's the only criteria here. Just get traffic. So the first 3 months, I didn't know what I was doing. And then I started to see trends and started to figure out, oh, I see what's happening here. Ended up, long story short, ended up bringing him up to 300,000 page views a month in the first year. And then after that, he gave me a little bit of a raise. It wasn't massive, but it wasn't tiny. And ended up after that, driving him up to 600,000 page views a month in the next 6 months after that. So that's how I got into it. And then after that, started kind of getting some better clients here and there, some higher paying clients, some clients who knew a bit more about SEO themselves, and developed more skills. I ended up, after I left him, I ended up working for a client I still work for, still my biggest client, called Zety.com, Zety.com. They're a career site, and they have a software as a service resume builder. And the guy who runs that gave me a graduate level class in SEO, taught me a lot more than I already knew. I already knew a lot, but he taught me a lot more. This guy's brilliant. His name is Kuba Kozej. He's a Polish guy. The company is Polish. He's brilliant. He built this company in 2 years that he sold for, I can't tell you exactly how much because of an NDA, but it was well into the tens of millions of dollars.
Wow.
And the reason he was able to do this in such a short time, he built this, in 2 years. I came on after year one. He had 1 million page views a month in traffic already. And me and 2 other writers, between the 3 of us, we got him up to 3.5 million page views a month in a short time. But he was able to do this because he was able to make this sale because he got so much web traffic, and that traffic turned into money for his business because his readers became his customers. They came looking for advice and ended up saying, hey, your software as a service product there is actually pretty attractive to me. Resume builder. I think I'll buy a month of it. And so in the course of that, I learned a lot more about SEO, and then ended up saying, I had a lot of writers. I'm a member of the American Society of Journalists and Authors, and I had them asking me all the time, how do you do SEO? All my clients want SEO. So I ended up, saying, well, I'll teach you. I'll tell you we'll do a phone call and I'll explain it. And so I did that for a while, and then they ended up saying, hey, why don't you teach classes in this to our members? And so, for free, volunteering. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. I'll do this. And then after a while, so many people were asking me about SEO, I thought, well, I should just write a book about it, because then I can just point them to the book and I don't have to spend all my time on this anymore.
Perfect. And when did the book come out?
It came out about a year ago, and I never marketed it. It's like, I don't know if you know any chefs, but I used to work in restaurants, and chefs are always like, you go home to a chef's house and they're not making a big 5-course meal. They're eating ramen noodles. So it's kind of the same with me. Like, I can market for other people, but I don't really have a lot of time to market for myself. So the book came out about a year ago, and only recently did I start saying, I don't try to market this thing. I ought to go on, podcasts like yours, Wendy, and start talking about the book. So
right. Well, that's okay. Here we are. So we get to talk about it, and and offline, maybe we can talk about that, because I just launched a new book. But unlike you, I have a whole marketing team behind me that can handle some of that stuff. So I was pretty spoiled.
Yes, let's definitely talk about that off camera. If your viewers are interested, there's a copy of the book right there. Think Like Google: How to Rank, Convert, and Profit no matter how much they change the rules. And so that's it.
Well, when I read the description, I haven't read your book yet, but I fully intend to. But I saw a lot of things that felt very familiar to me, and the types of strategy, SEO strategy or tactics that we've moved to, which is using being authentic and writing first for authenticity. And then keywords, of course, are important because you want to know what people are looking for. But long-term, Google will continue to change their algorithm, right? And so it's all about writing to where you truly add value, how you are differentiated. So
that's
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. I mean, Google, like, they changed their algorithm more than most people change their socks, right? I mean, I saw a statistic that we don't really know. They don't release these details, but I saw a statistic that said that they estimate Google has changed its algorithm about 70 times in the past 3 years alone. So you constantly have this moving target where you're like, oh, here goes my traffic ramping up, and then there's an update, and boom, you lose like 20% or 30%, or the site that I was telling you about that I first worked for, they lost 75% in one shot.
Wow.
And it wasn't a penalty or anything like that, and it was I won't get into it, but it was something to do with the Google AMP, which we don't have to get into here, but
right.
But anyway, so yeah, you gotta find a way to avoid that. You got to find a way to think about that moving target and say, how do I stop chasing this moving target? And how do I mean, Google is trying to get you to do one thing, right? They're not trying to get you to chase their moving target. They keep changing the target because people keep trying to game them. People keep going, oh, I know what the target is. I'm going to aim at the target. And they're like, no, we don't want you to be aiming at that. We want you to be aiming over here. We just made that change to try to get you closer over here, not to get you to say, oh, I know how to trick you now. So it's not about tricking Google. It's about figuring out what does Google want. And that's why the title of my book is Think Like Google, because once you can think like Google, you won't be chasing that moving target anymore. You'll be aiming at what Google is trying to get you to aim at.
So what does Google think?
Exactly. That's the question, right? So what they think is, I mean, the basic picture of their thought is that they want to make giant Scrooge McDuck-sized piles of money and go swimming in it. Or they want to use it for humanitarian reasons, whichever one you believe. I mean, they're either trying to, just get filthy rich and buy yachts, or they're trying to help people, and they're trying to not be evil. Whichever one of those you believe, I don't really care. But you have to understand that they're trying to make money, right? Everybody knows that. They're in business to make money. They have shareholders, and the way they make their money for those shareholders is by placing ads on the Google homepage. They make it all through ads and by placing ads everywhere else on the AMP and on other people's pages and so forth. So they make their money off ad revenue. So they want to make more ad revenue. And the way they're going to make more ad revenue is by serving the best piece of content that best serves the searcher. And so if you write that best piece of content, then that's you, and then they're going to rank you high. Now, you could be saying right now, well, great, all I need to do is write the best content in the world and I'll rank. Thanks a lot, genius, for telling me that. I already knew that. Well, but the thing is that there's a certain way that you write the best piece of content in the world. And it's using the SEO tools we've all come to know and sometimes love, hate, in a counterintuitive way. So Google wants you to, they want you to serve the searcher. They've got lots and lots of tools that they can use now to figure out, are you serving the searcher? That's the number one thing that they're trying to get you to do, is serve the searcher the best way. There's some evidence, they used to, many, many years ago in the stone age of the internet, they would figure out how to serve the searcher by saying, okay, we're going to use keywords because we're programmers. All we know how to do is write an algorithm that's going to analyze this piece, put on the Buddy Holly glasses and the white lab coat and analyze the piece for keywords and say, does this work? Well, that worked for a little while, and then people started realizing what was going on. Here comes the moving target. People started gaming them and saying, oh, if I just stuff this keyword, if I'm writing an article about picture frames and I just put picture frames in every sentence, Google's going to say, well, that works because picture frames isn't. Well, Google started figuring that out, years and years ago, and started saying, well, no, if you put the keyword in too much, we're going to penalize you.
And thank goodness, because that was a low point for content quality. It
was awful, right? You'd read these articles and you'd be like, I can't even get through this thing, right. But this is what I have to deal with. So Google said, well, that doesn't make us money. That doesn't serve the searcher. So what we're going to do is we're going to alter that and say, well, now, you can't put that many keywords. Well, then they started getting even smarter, and they started using other tools like machine learning and all kinds of other tools that they don't let us see. And one of them is dwell time. And there's a lot of controversy about this. If you talk to the head gurus like Dr. Pete of Moz and Barry Schwartz of Search Engine Land. They'll say, whoa, 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 that's not proven. In fact, Google has come out and said maybe that's not what they're doing. But Nick Frost, the head of Google Brain in Canada, which is not Google, it's Google's one of their AI projects in Canada. He came out and said that this is what they're doing. And then Google came out and said, whoa, 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 he wasn't authorized to say that. That's not necessarily what we're doing. But I believe personally that they are definitely using dwell time. And what dwell time is, if you've never heard of it, which I suspect you have, and I suspect most of your listeners have, but just for the ones that haven't, dwell time is this concept that when you sit down and you type in picture frames into Google and hit enter or return, it's going to bring up a list of 17 billion pages or whatever that fit those search terms, that search term. And then it's going to watch you click one. If you click the top one, it's going to start a little stopwatch. And then if you come back 5 seconds later, Google's going to say, Wendy didn't really like that page that much. She came back in 5 seconds. She must have instantly thought this is no good. If, on the other hand, you stay there for 15 minutes and then come back, Google's going to say, wow, Wendy really liked that page. And it's not just, Google can't follow you unless if you're using the Google Analytics Search Console, it can follow you. Then it does know how much time the reader spends on each page, even if you click off of Google. And sometimes, if you don't have the console installed and somebody clicks through to your page and they never come back, I think Google kind of says, well, that's probably a yes, because they didn't click back anyway. So she must have got her answer. I don't know how long she stayed on the page, but long story short, Google is watching you. It's watching this behavior, and it's recording for 7 billion searches every single day. It's recording votes for and against different articles. Mm-hmm. It's the most efficient voting booth in history. And it's ranking those. It's taking that into account and saying, well, here's all these votes for this article and all these votes against this other article. I'll drift this one down and I'll drift this one higher up. And so the upshot of this is that if you can convince the searcher to stay on your page longer, then you're going to get more votes in Google and you're going to drift higher up. And again, even if you don't believe in dwell time, you have to believe they're using other ways to get to this same result, to figure out, does Wendy like this page or does she not? And when the better they figure that out, which is what all these moving target algorithm updates are all about, the better they figure it out, the more they're getting toward that goal on the horizon, which is deliver the best possible content for that searcher. And not just for that searcher, you got to think 80% of searchers are just skimmers. They're not even going to read the page. They're going to go to the page and skim through it and be like, does this answer what I have? Oh, there's my answer. Bye. And they're going to bounce. So,
I try to explain this concept on the client side, where people want instant results to be, in the first page or the second page of Google. And so part of it is, Google seeing is this content relevant and watching how many people click in, how many people stay, but there's also this virtuous effect of time, right? So the longer that content's out there, the more people that click, it's going to keep moving up and, continue its journey, so to speak.
Yeah, you can't do it right away. And generally when I work for clients who say, well, we want to pay you, we're going to pay you for a month and you're going to get X amount of views. And if that doesn't happen, it's done. And I'll kind of say, well, that's a little bit unrealistic. It's not 100% unrealistic. If they've already got some domain authority in a certain keywords, if they've already got some punch, they've already got some articles ranking in a certain kind of keyword topic area, then it's very quick. The first site that I was telling you about, that it was a money site. And once we started to dominate on certain kinds of articles in the money world, every time we would write an article, or it was me, I wrote 700 plus articles for this site. Every time I would write an article for this site, it would pop up in 2 or 3 days. Boom. So if the Super Bowl was coming up, I'd say, well, I'm going to write money articles about the Super Bowl all that week, and they'll be ranked by the time the Super Bowl hits, and they'll be fresh, so people won't yet know, like, oh, I got to beat that article. So that was kind of my trick. But then also there was a medical waste site a medical waste website for a medical waste disposal company that wanted me. They had 8,000 readers a month and they wanted me to grow that massively. And they said, can you do that in a month? And I said, around the right topics, yes. And then they paid me to go in and figure out what those 20 topics would be that I would write in 20 days of work. And then when I sat down and did that, yes, I got them from 8,000 views a month to 45,000 views a month in 20 days of work. By the end of that month, they saw it jump up. But it's because I wasn't targeting, I wasn't targeting like sutures or some stuff I was targeting doctor's offices, but I wasn't targeting keywords that weren't related to them. I was targeting, medical waste or very tightly, medical articles, everything kind of in their realm. They had already built some authority.
So did you start then with topic clustering? So figuring out what that central theme is and all these topics around that theme in order to, figure out the relationship between these pieces?
Well, yeah, this is sort of off topic from my book and from my message, but yeah, what I did was I used SEMrush.com, which is, a big keyword research tool. And I went in there and did a competitive analysis on their competitions and found out who is their competition by first plugging their website in and then finding all these competing sites that popped up and then looking at all of those sites and saying, okay, what are they ranking for? Where are they getting the most of their traffic? And then taking those results and putting them into a spreadsheet and saying, well, here's the top, several, I think it was like 1,000 keywords where their competition is getting the most traffic. And then also looking at sorting those by what are the ones where, I'd go and also search in Google and say, use the Moz bar, that tells you the domain authority of each site and say, hey, which ones of these topics are kind of easy to compete in and which ones are harder to compete in. Right. And then pick the topics that had the most traffic, that were the easiest to rank in, and wrote those 20 first.
There you go. Low-hanging fruit right there.
Low-hanging fruit right off the bat. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's go back to your book. And what are some of the concepts that readers can learn from reading it?
Yeah. So the idea is to, if you're already thinking like Google, like, okay, I need to serve the searcher first. And you don't want to say, well, great. Again, thanks, Tom. Thanks, Genius, for the great advice to write a good article. I already knew that. Mm-hmm. So what you want to do is you want to start using these SEO tools to start in with some of the SEO tools. Pardon me. I'm looking through my notes here. I got a little bit lost. So, the pandemic, it's seeping into everyone.
Oh, isn't it?
So what you want to do is to please the searcher, you want to look at your standard SEO tools with a different point of view. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to admit to yourself that you're not, an old school J. Jonah Jameson style newspaper editor who has this empathy built inside their body, which is what, how those old school editors back in the print, the dinosaur days of print. A cub reporter would come in and say, Chief, I got a story. And the chief would look at it right away, either say, it's sensational or nobody cares. They just had this sense about them. And that's why they got paid the big bucks. But you and I don't have that right away. You can build it, though, using SEO tools. You have to have that empathy because this is, writing an article is like sales. It's like a sales job. You have to understand everything about your reader. You have to know your reader's needs. You have to know your searcher's needs. Well, you can't sit down like a salesperson and have a qualifying conversation with your searcher where you say, hey, what are you in the market for? Why are you searching this thing, this idea, this topic? What kind of life do you lead? You can't sit down and have this conversation with the searcher, and you don't have that empathy natively like the old school J. Jonah Jameson editor. So you have to build it somehow. You can't sit down and write an article unless you have that empathy in your body ingrained into you, unless you understand your reader's emotion. You can't deliver the perfect article for that searcher unless you have that in you. So the way to build it is to use these SEO research tools that we all already know about in a counterintuitive way. And the first way is keyword research, right? Everybody knows about keyword research. You got the spreadsheet, you got the keywords, but you're not going to use it to shoehorn in these correct words into your article. You're going to use it first and foremost for about 5 minutes when you sit down to do your initial research. Just do quickly 5 minutes to get a glimpse at your reader's surface thoughts. to get yourself, start calibrating your brain in the right direction. And that starts out with a tool called SEMrush.com. I don't make any money from them, but I love their tool. It's about $99 a month. Or Ahrefs, Ahrefs.com. There are a few free ones out there I've used from time to time. I've never really found a free one that I love. If you're doing this kind of thing, spring for the $99 a month to do this. But anyway, you get the list of keywords back. And by the way, if you're building a content map, you don't have to have SEMrush forever. You just have to have it, for a month to build a content map. It's better to have it forever. But if you only got $99 in your budget for this, do the content map the first month, and then you're done. But anyway, so you get this list of keywords back for your topic, and those are your searcher's surface thoughts. Don't agonize over them. Just skim through them. Find the ones that are most closely related. You're going to get a lot of keywords that you're like, that doesn't fit. That doesn't fit what this article is about. Just kind of focus, skim real quickly, and find the ones that have the most monthly searches, and find those are the ones the reader cares about the most, and find the ones that are most closely related to your topic. And then you have in 5 minutes, you have a kind of a little bit better picture of your reader. Move on quickly from there. Go to competitive analysis next. So this is where you Google search your term, and you look at the top article. You click through the top article. You open up a Google Doc spreadsheet or a MS Word spreadsheet, and you start a bullet list, and you start typing in, first you type in the top few keywords that you think matter most. Then you type in under competitive analysis, you start building an outline from that top article. And you're not doing this in order to reverse engineer that article, because what Google does not need is more of the same content. They've got 17 billion pages already for your topic. If you give them one more that's exactly like it, you're never going to get anywhere.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's the crucial step. But it starts with this. It starts with building an outline of that first article. Not exactly. You're not going to copy paste each H2, each section heading or H2 into the outline. You're just going to, in your own words, type out what you think is most important to your reader. You don't even have to type the full outline. Just type out, that's a good, that should probably be included in my article. And the reason you're starting with the first article first is because that's the one Google has deemed that your searcher likes the most and answers the questions in the best way so far. So go ahead and do that. And then, spend 2 or 3 minutes on this task. Then click back to Google, click into article number 2, skim it even faster, and just look and see, are there any good points in these H2s that are not in article number 1 that aren't already in my little outline? If so, add them to your outline. Click back, click into article number 3, do the same thing there. Find any gems that are in there that you need. Pop all that into your outline. You're not ready to write from this outline. This is just, again, giving you a deeper picture into your reader's mind. A clearer picture. Then you're going to move on to social media analysis. And that is where you go to Reddit. They call them reddit.com, reddit.com. They call themselves the internet's front page. I call them the internet sewer. No offense, Reddit. It is a wretched hive of scum and villainy. You're going to, if you go in there and start typing your opinions, there will be 30,000 people eager to rip you apart.
Oh, so how fun.
Yeah, so don't do that. Just go there to eavesdrop and peek through the hole at what's going on. And it's a gold mine, because you go into Reddit and you don't go into Reddit, pardon me. You go to Google and you Google your term again, but this time you add the word Reddit on the end and you hit enter. And Google pops up a bunch of Reddit pages. And you look and you find 1 or 2 that you think are most closely related to what your searcher is interested in. And you click in there, and again, you could spend all day on this. Please don't. Spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes on this. So your whole research phase here is going to be half an hour on this kind of research at the most. So what you do is you go and you start skimming through this Reddit thread or 2 Reddit threads, and you start looking for your reader's emotion, your reader's what's churning their gut, what's made them sit down and Google this term. What was keeping them up at night, making their teeth grind. You want to know. So you start looking for turns of phrase like, I can't stand this, or, this is driving me crazy. And you grab those and you pop them into your little document you've got going there, your bullet list under social media analysis, because those turns of phrase later on are going to be how you're going to show your reader that you've built this empathy. Because they're going to say, oh, That's exactly what I was just saying. I get emails all the time from readers who say, I felt like I was having a conversation with you. I felt like you understood me. I felt like we know each other.
Wow.
Yeah, it's because I did this.
That resonated.
Yeah, exactly. So I end up, kind of doing this and trying to pull those out, but also looking for good bits of advice that weren't in those other articles, because there's going to be people in there that are going to give great advice. You're going to check it. You're going to research it, Google it again, and be like, is this true? Is this person saying that you should do this? Is this right, or is this crazy? And then, go through and, like I said, look for turns of phrase and look for good pieces of advice. And then now you should have a really good view into your reader's mind and heart. And now you're almost ready to write the article, but there is a fourth step to this research that is supremely important, and it is building a better mousetrap. And so now that you have this, now that you're like bosom buddies with your searcher, now you sit down and you think, how do I go this one better? And you can't outdo article number one everywhere. Article number one is probably so good. The first thing that popped up in Google is probably so good that you're going to hit a despair point when you do this. You're going to say, I can't outdo that article. I see why it ranks. It's so amazing. Well, you only have to find one way to outdo it. If you can equal it everywhere, but outdo it in one way, then you'll outdo it. And you'll have I'm not going to say you're 100% going to rank, but you'll have a really good chance of ranking. And so the way you're going to do that, there's several tools, there's several lenses you're going to look at that article through. And if you can outdo it in every way, then you're going to rank for a long time. Nobody's going to ever outdo you. But if you can outdo it in at least one way, then you can outdo that article. Now, I've got a colleague who, when he did this phase, he was trying to rank for the term, I hate my job. And when he did this better mousetrap phase, that he doesn't call it that, that's my idea for it, but when he did this, he came and talked to me after, and he said, I looked at the keyword research and for I hate my job, and I know I have to write an article to rank for this. And there were keywords in there that said things like, I hate my boss, I hate my life, I want to die, I can't stand this, I'm at the end of my rope. These were keywords delivered by a keyword research tool.
Wow.
Right. So he sat back and he thought, I don't think my reader wants me to fix this problem. I think my reader wants a shoulder to cry on. I really do. I think the reader just wants some empathy here, just wants me to come back and say, hey, your job is awful. You're in a terrible situation. I get it. Nobody should have to go through what you're going through. They just want that. So he wrote this article, and he did give some advice. I mean, he wasn't, he's writing a how-to article, so he gave some advice, but he spent most of his head-scratching time figuring out, how do I convey to this reader that I agree with them that they're in the worst job possible. And so he wrote most of his article like that. A few days later, boom, he was number one in Google. I think he's number 4 now. He hasn't updated that article in over a year and a half, which is why it's not number 1 anymore. But that's how he ranked. And plus, other people have come in and spotted what he was doing and did the same thing and outdid him.
But what a fantastic example of empathy right there.
Yeah. It's the perfect example of empathy, and he got it by doing this competitive analysis and looking at the other articles and saying, oh, I get it. They're offering advice, but I can go them one better by digging into this emotion a bit more. Now, there's other tools you can use, and if you like, I'll go through them real quickly.
Sure.
So these are other lenses you're going to use to look at that number 1 article when you build that better mousetrap, when you think how to build that better mousetrap. The first one's called the inverted pyramid. If you went through journalism school, you already know what it is. If you didn't, it's really simple. It's just the idea of give them the value right away. If somebody is Googling, why won't my outboard motor start? They don't want you to start talking about the beauty of outboarding and start talking about fishing and all that stuff. They want you to tell them right away, here's why your outboard motor won't start. Because they're probably sitting at the boat ramp. They've got the 2 dogs and the 2 kids and the spouse in the boat with them. And the dogs are barking at other people. There's 9 people backed up behind them at the boat launch with their arms folded. The kids are throwing parts of the boat into the lake, and the spouse is looking at them.
It's a bad situation.
Yeah, exactly. And so you don't want to start. You want to get right away. Give them their answer right away. You may worry, I give them their answer right away, they're going to bounce. Well, guess what? You don't give them their answer right away, they're going to bounce. Yeah. You give them their answer right away, 80% of them might still bounce, but you're going to have a much higher chance of convincing them, of saying like, and while you're here, I've got a lot more information you're going to care about, like how to stop this boat not starting problem from happening next time. You start right away with the answer. In other words, you want to start with an engaging introduction. If you Google best copywriting introduction formulas, you'll get articles with like 20 different formulas. But you want to start out with what's called a problem, agitate. Well, this is one of them. This is my favorite one: problem, agitate, solution. So you start out by telling them their problem, and this whole thing is 50 words to 150 words, not very long. You're not going to ramble forever. You're going to start out by saying, here's your problem. So they go, that's my problem. You're right. Then you're going to agitate the problem. And that's where you say, here's what's going to happen if you don't fix your problem. And they're going to say, oh, you're right. That's terrifying. And then you're going to say, here's your solution. Maybe you can't tell the solution within that 150 words, but you can at least convince them you have it by saying, I talked to 6 experts on this, or I did 7 hours of research on this, or I've been doing this for 7 years and that's how I know this, or some way you can convince them. And maybe you can just give them the solution right away, but at least convince them, hey, this article is going to solve your problem.
Spend time on it. It's worth reading.
Yeah, you convince them it's worth reading. So an example of that is I write a lot of resume articles. A typical resume article would start out with, you need to write this resume for a software engineer. If you don't write a good one, guess what? 90% of recruiters and hiring managers out there will only spend 6 seconds on it. So if you don't write a great resume, you're not going to get hired. And then the agitate part is you're going to be living in your parents' basement, boiling the label off a can of beans. You're never going to get any. You agitate. You tell them what's going to happen if they don't fix it, and then you say, hey, don't worry. I'm a certified professional resume writer. Been doing this for a lot of years. I've got the solutions below, and boom, that's your problem, agitate, solution, intro. That's going to keep them around. If the other competition isn't doing that, that's how you can beat them. You're not just going to do that in the article intro. You're going to do it in the intro to every section. I like to do a mini one. I like to show them the heaven they're going to get if they read that section, and the hell they're going to get if they don't, or the hell they're going to get if they don't read the section. So I might start off with just one sentence saying, oh no, like the recruiter saw your resume and blah, blah, blah. Why? Because you didn't have a great resume summary. Well, here we go. Here's how you do it right. Here's how to
fix that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or success. The recruiter saw your resume and instantly wanted to call you. Why did that happen? Because you wrote a great resume summary. That might be section number 1 or 2 in your article. So yeah, the heaven, start each section with the heaven or hell intro. And then, if you can't beat your competition that way, do better research so you can provide better information. So after you've done your SEO research, you've got to research the facts in the article. There's one example, I had to write an article about how much money does an NFL referee make. Well, everybody was saying $75,000. I don't want to tell the long version of this story here. It's in the book, but if you dig into that a little bit more, they were all wrong. And so I found the truth by digging. It took me a couple hours to find the truth. So but it was time well spent, because I ranked number 1 right after that. A couple days after that, I popped up at number 1 because I was able to say, hey, everybody else is telling you $75,000. They're wrong. It's more like $500,000 a year. And here's why. And so I had better research than anybody. They were all the other articles were linking to each other. And I came out and said, no. Here's what the real answer is. And people read it and said, oh, well, that makes sense to me. And so the article popped right up and stayed up for a long time, until that website closed many years later for a different reason. But so maybe you can do better research, or maybe your layout can just be better. I had to write an article on golf money for the PGA Tour, and the PGA itself had an article, and I said, how am I going to beat the PGA's article on the prize purse? Well, I looked at their article and I said, oh, it's presented in a horrible way. I was sitting there trying to research it, and I was like, I can't understand what's going on here. And then it hit me. I was like, oh, all I have to do is present it in a clearer way, make a better spreadsheet and pop it out in front of people. And I beat them. I beat the PGA at their own at their own topic. So so that's the kind of thing. That's one kind of thing you can do is just, oh, well, maybe I can do better layout. If you can't do better layout, maybe your writing can be more clear and concise. There's a fantastic book called On Writing Well by William Zinsser, Zinsser. It's very short. His main point is don't say precipitation when you can say rain. Don't have a 3-line sentence when you can have a half-a-line sentence. I love Moby Dick. Don't get me wrong. I read that book 3 times in college. I love long sentences. I love convoluted sentences, but don't do that to your readers. They don't want it. They'll bounce. Have clear, concise writing. You can use a great tool called the Hemingway app or the Hemingway editor online. There's a free version and a paid version. Either one works just as well. You drop your article copy in there. It'll flag all the too long sentences and all the too long words, and it'll suggest shorter words that you can use instead with Germanic roots instead of long Latinate roots that we're going to use in science class. And so make your writing more clear and concise. Maybe you can do that. Maybe you can make your paragraphs shorter. People like short paragraphs. And if you notice that the number one contender is a wall of text, you can say, aha, I know how I can beat you there. Give more actionable advice. Some articles ramble on and on and on. Some articles are just packed with actionable advice. Every section, I like to sit down and think, with this section, what is the reader, how is this section going to make the reader's life better after they click away from the article? Are they instantly going to be like, I can use that? If they're not, don't write the section. You may notice that the number one competitor doesn't have a lot of actionable advice. If not, you can beat them there. Resources. If you have lots of links out to lots of high authority sites like .edus, .orgs, and .gov sites, you may, or even just sites with high domain authority, again, looking at the Moz bar, you may find that your Google probably finds that you're helping the reader a lot more, and the reader probably finds that you're helping them. They're not going to click out of your article and go back to Google. They're going to click forward somewhere else. That's really good. So do lots of that. And then, other resources are videos and images that actually add value. Go ahead and grab YouTube videos that other people made about this topic that are going to help your reader a bunch, because that's going to keep, there's one article I would track that I wrote that would keep people on the page for 15 to 20 minutes. And the reason it was doing that is because it was packed full of videos that were short videos that were all specifically helping my searcher with this topic that they had searched. And so I was able to keep them in there for 15 to 20 minutes each time, which is really long, which
in
Google
that case,
loves.
do the videos need to be embedded within your code rather than something that opens in a new window?
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Yeah. YouTube will provide you with an embed link. And, when you click share, it'll say, well, here's the link to the video. And you're like, no. And you click over, there's another place where it says embed link. Yeah, grab that, embed it into your page. And that way they're going to stay on your page and watch it. And that's much better. And so the image, the videos, though, it doesn't matter who owns the copyright to the video, because they put it on YouTube, and that means it's perfectly fine to share it. Google owns YouTube. It's perfectly fine to share that.
It's in the public domain. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's yours. Go ahead and grab it and put it in there. Put images in it. If you're writing an article about coffee, you could put an image in there of somebody sitting drinking coffee with like bamboo behind them. That's fine. But it's so much better if you can somehow help the searcher. So if the article is about like growing your own coffee tree or something, well, go ahead and put text over that helps them, or make a little info. Go on canva.com, get a free Canva account, and make an infographic, a little simple infographic to put in there to help your searcher. Or go to fiverr.com and have somebody professionally make one, or hire an actual designer to make an image for you if you've got that kind of budget to make an infographic for you. Because images that actually help, again, this is all about empathy. If you've built that empathy through the tools I was talking about, you're going to help your searcher. If you're going to know that you need to help your searcher, well, this is going to be one more way to help your searcher. Put an infographic in there, that not just an image that says, oh yeah, this is an article about coffee, so here's a picture of coffee. Help them. Find ways that the image is, because then, like I said, 80% of readers are actually just skimmers. They're not readers. Your goal is to turn that searcher into a reader. And one way you can do that is with infographics, or even just a simple image with a bullet list of words over it. I was able to rank for, I am number one. I'm sorry, I'm number two now. No longer number one. I am number one for the term medical waste. If you Google that, now number two. But either way, no autographs, please. That was for the medical waste site. And the article, the competition that I had to rank against, already had a great article. They were already doing all these things I've talked about, except they didn't have any images. So the only way I could think of to beat them was I said, I'm going to take that image of that biohazard symbol, and I'm going to pop my bullet lists that are already in my article in large font over that. And I'm going to put every couple of paragraphs, I'm going to put an image with a bullet list on it in big font. I ranked #1 very quickly, and I'm convinced the only reason was because I added those images that the skimmer on their phone, most of us are on our phones, was skimming through and went, oh, I better stop and read that. That's like a cool image.
That looks important. Yeah.
Yeah. And it took me 10 minutes to do, but I'm convinced that's why I rank.
Yeah.
So,
Canvas makes this so easy. I'm glad you brought up that tool.
Yeah. They're a fantastic tool. And other tools are, backlinks. This is a great way to, you look on the Moz bar, if you install that in your browser and you go into the Google search results, you'll see the domain authority of every page, and you'll also see how many backlinks every page has. And so the more backlinks you have from reputable sources, the more reputable pages are linking into you, the more Google is going to respect you. That's one of those tools they use to find out, is this good content or not? Does this serve the searcher or not? Like I said, even if you don't believe in dwell time. So one way that people were for a long time and still are getting backlinks is they reach out to other sites and they say, hey, if you link to me, I'll link to you. Or, hey, here's a page. I think it's of interest to you. Would you please link to it? I'm not 100% against that, but if Google catches you doing it, they will slam you down into the pits of SEO hell. So be very careful with that. I don't personally like to do it. I like to get backlinks organically, which is by doing all the things I've already said, trying to rank high. If you do that, and if your page is different, other people will link to you. This money site that I wrote for first for $40,000 a year, I got 3,000 backlinks from sites like the BBC, CNN, Forbes, The Economist, Fortune, just dozens of ESPN, dozens of really amazing domains were linking to me like crazy because they couldn't find I was doing such better research. They couldn't find the information in another place. They wanted to link to a more reputable site than ours. Ours had a domain authority starting out of like 20 or 25.
Oh, wow.
But they didn't want to link to us, but they're like, well, I can't find this information anywhere else. So I better link to them. So that is important. And then, you need a fair amount of content. You got to be adding regularly. An article a day or more is fantastic. If you can only do one a week, at least do one a week. And that's pretty much the message right there. I don't know if you have questions, I'm happy to answer questions. Featured snippets are important. We can get into that if you want to, but that's pretty much the message right there.
Well, you've packed in a lot of wonderful advice, very practical advice here. And this is all in your book?
This and more is all in my book. Yeah,
okay.
I get more into detail and show how to do these things in my book. Absolutely.
Excellent.
And I also do consulting as well. This is something new that I've started offering. Is if somebody's got a website and they want me to come in and check if they're doing all these things correctly or what things they could be doing better, I'm happy to do that as well.
Great. Well, if our listeners and watchers want to learn more about you and your book, where can they go?
They can go to Amazon.com and just type in Think Like Google in the Amazon search box, and the book will pop right up. There's a Kindle version and a paperback version. The Kindle version is cheaper, obviously. And if they want to, they can look for me on LinkedIn, just as Tom Gerencer on LinkedIn. I have a website, but it's, like I said, the ramen noodle analogy. It's a couple years out of date. I don't update it often enough. So.
All right. Well, I will certainly link to some of these resources in our show notes so people can find that. And I know how to spell Gerencer now, so I'll make sure that's in there too.
All right. Thank you very much. I forgot we never did talk about, that my client list has grown beyond Zeddy and that first site. Now I'm more into Hewlett Packard, and I've written for Boys Life and the Boston Globe and things like that. But that's something for the end here, I guess. So.
All right. Well, thanks for being on today, Tom. I appreciate all your great advice for our listeners.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for having me. It was a really fun time. I appreciate it.
Visit contentmarketingengineer.com for notes and resources from today's episode. While there, you can subscribe to my blog, which will keep you up to date on new episodes and other resources for building trust and growing your business with technical content. Thanks, and have a great day.